evening and welcome to Burn News and Views. And it's the start of the Christmas season. And what better way to start it off with talking about giving and helping others in our community? And to do that, we have Lindsay Simmons and Patrina Paynter here. And we're going to be talking about the big give back angel tree that Lindsay Simmons helped start many, many years ago. So, Lindsay, why don't you tell us why you started this and how long ago it was?
Okay, Dawn, thank you. Um, I would say about 5 or 6 years ago, the I'm the president of the Foster Parent Association, and we realized um, that the children that are in foster care are mostly raised by our everyday Bermudians. So we felt that we need to figure out a way to help the community to help get gifts for these children. And I know Patrina. And so I said to Patrina, listen, I'm thinking about doing this for foster children. What about big brothers and big sisters? And she said, you think you get all these gifts? And I said, yeah. So that's how it was born. That's how we started by collecting all the names and asking children for their wishes. And from there, it's just growing. And we make sure everywhere we're done it, everybody's got gifts, and people are always trying to get other children gifts. But you know, what's special because each angel actually represents an individual child. We don't just ask for gifts, just for no rhyme or reason. So each gift each angel on the back of it has a code that represents either a foster child, a child that's in residential treatment, or a little from Big Brothers and Big Sisters.
Right. Now,
So
I
that's how
remember
it started.
the very first time I saw one, I was up at Rosa's and I saw the tree,
Hmm.
and it just touched my heart to see the Rosa's doing this, and I made a donation, and I'm going to be making a donation again tonight. Hopefully, other
Thank you.
people will be as well, because I mean, Christmas is a great time for little kids. It's
Hmm.
something that they look forward to. But if there's not anything under the tree for them, then it's not as nice as can be. So, if people want to make a donation, how can they do that?
They could do a couple of things actually this year. We've actually changed it a bit because of COVID, and so we actually still have our angels at raises. We actually put some in chopsticks. I had an employee Ashley, and she was like, "I feel neglected over her. We don't get angels." So she went and got some garland, and she put it up on our counter, and then we stuck some angels over there. We also went on Sargasso over chopsticks, and people donate money to go towards an angel. So each time somebody donates, we pull an angel, and then we get the gift for that child.
Right. Now, you said you're also doing something differently. It was just the chopsticks, or is there an online way for people to give this year as
Yes,
well?
where they could actually go through Sargasso seeds on our chopsticks website. On our chopsticks one end, they could put a donation on there. We have $25, $50, $75, or $100. When I first put it up, I was pleasantly surprised. Maybe 10 minutes after I put it up, one lady actually donated $200.
Wow.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's been nice.
How many
Yes.
children do you feel like you've helped over the last 5 years, five or
Oh,
six
wow.
years?
Um, easy of 1,000.
Okay.
I agree with over 1,000 children by the time you add
Yeah.
BBBS and the foster care children into it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm. Now,
Yeah.
Patricia, what benefits have you seen for your littles?
Happiness, joy on their faces. People have to understand that there were a lot of people that were already struggling before the pandemic, right? So before the pandemic, we had people that were struggling to get gifts for their children. And a lot of them will call the office and be like, is there any way, and I'm like, sometimes our hands are tied because we're a charity as well. So when people show this type of generosity, it's a huge help. And what I like about this is that the children put what they want, the things that they really want, and to see the generosity of the community has been absolutely
Hmm.
amazing. And honestly, right now during the pandemic, the people that didn't struggle before are now also struggling. So it's like a lot of them are like, we don't know what Christmas is going to look like for our families this year. I had one mother call me today. She's like, my car's going off the road. I have electricity to pay. I need food. She said, Patrina, I'm just stressed. And she just wanted to call and just have someone to talk to. So, the children, they deserve some form of happiness. They've been out of school. They've been, it's just been a whole lot. So for this, I think it should be something extra special for them. And when they open these gifts, trust me.
Yes.
Can each one of you just sort of share maybe one example over the last 5 or 6 years that really a child receiving a gift and the overabundance of joy that they received from getting it?
Lindsay, you want to go?
I can. It was a young man. He wanted some art supplies. He was at he was in high school, and it's always hard for people to pick the males that are older. But we have a fabulous team from Renry that every year they come through, and they started with us. As soon as we started, they said, "Oh, we'll take all these angels." And like this year, they were upset. They were like, "We want more angels." But like I said, every child is represented by a kid. So this young man, he wanted some art supplies, and when we had our Christmas party, he was overwhelmed. He was like almost in tears, and we had a representative there from Renry, and he needed a computer. So the lady Denise from Renry, she's amazing. She actually spoke to him, and she was able to get him not only the art supplies he wanted, but then she also got him the computer. I mean, he was so grateful. I mean, he was almost in tears over it. It was amazing. He was excited, and it's a lot seeing our older young man so excited about things, and he was so thankful and happy. So that's something that I would always remember. And by the way, a lot of people are so generous. I just want to say, like, these children ask for, because at first I was like, whoa, some of these gifts are really expensive. I remember last year somebody wanted a Mac Pro, and I was like, they're not getting that. They're going to get a gift certificate. Lo and behold, they got that Mac Pro that they wanted. So they get some expensive gifts and really nice gifts, and they appreciate it. So yeah, I just want to thank everybody that helps and continues to help with the industry, like Belco, Walker's Bermuda, Renry especially, and Dansations. They've been helping us every year. But then we have the individual
You know
people that
what?
come every year looking for it.
You just said dansations, right? So I
Hmm.
remember, if I remember correctly, I believe it was last year, we had a child that wanted to do dance lessons, and the mama
Hmm.
couldn't afford the dance lessons. And we also had a child that wanted to do football, and it was a little girl. She wanted to join a football team, and her mom was like, I just don't have the money for this. Like, I can't afford it.
Hmm.
And the mom was like, guess what? You're gonna play football. She's like, what? Okay, I'm gonna be on the football team. I'm gonna like, it was like, thank you so much, big brothers, big sisters. I'm like, well, it's not big brothers, big sisters, it's whoever put that up for the angel tree. So it's like,
Well, I
it's
actually,
sorry, go ahead. What do you say?
so the I know the girl. I actually know the person that actually went and got the dance lesson. They came to me. They're like, Lindsay, they want to do dance. My daughter does dance, and they actually got a dance lesson at a term at UDP. She's like, what else does she need? And dance is expensive, and they were
Mm-hmm.
just so happy to do it because their daughter does it. And they said, if that's what she wants to do, we're gonna make sure she does it. And even with danceations, they if they see an angel on the tree that they want to do dance, Holly is so grateful. I'm gracious, and she always like says, "Her, we're giving the dance class as well." So they're really good.
And that's the type of things. I mean, sometimes sometimes the gifts are things that the children are just passionate about. They want to do, but the parents just can't afford to do those things for them. So it's just really nice when people in the community see that and are like, "Well, look, I'll do that." Like,
Hmm.
and it's something that's meaningful for these children. They deserve it.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Well, I appreciate having both of you on tonight. And I
Thank
just want to
you.
urge the public, especially those of us who have as much as we had last year and the year before, and we haven't been affected by the pandemic, please make a donation to brighten up some child's life. It may
Yes.
be a little simple thing for you, but for them,
It means the world.
It means the
It
world.
means the world to
Definitely.
them. And I mean, let's just look back to when we were kids at Christmas. Christmas time was about receiving gifts. And I know sometimes people are like, oh well, they don't need that. They don't need, but yeah, but the children, they should be able to be
Hmm.
happy. They should be able to enjoy themselves and have something that they really want for Christmas. Why not?
Yep. And last thing I just want to say, the one before you send us on our way is I had a conversation with a lady the other day, and she said, "Oh my gosh, they want all these expensive gifts." I said, "Listen, that's what they wish for. They don't necessarily have to get it." And so she was like, "Well, I'm sure the foster parents." I said, "Some foster parents are still struggling as well." But I said, "You know what? Imagine, especially in foster care, being taken from the only home you know during Christmas or throughout the year, and the only thing you want is this one gift, and someone want like an aloe doll, and that's all they want, and that's going to brighten their Christmas because they're not going to be with the regular families. So to bring some joy during Christmas means the world, honestly.
All right.
So
Thank you. I
thank you.
appreciate your effort, Lindsay, in starting this,
Yes.
and the
No
blessings of
problem.
foster children, and to all the littles out there, Patrina.
And we want to thank Lindsay too. And we want to thank everybody in the community that's been so supportive of this gesture, you know. So thank you so much,
Mm,
guys.
Right. And
thank you.
I'm going to kick you off, Lindsay,
Thanks for having us.
to, to speak
Thank
to
you.
your PLP colleague, uh, Deputy Premier Roban. I may put on
That's
my
my
Grinch.
deputy.
I may put on a Grinch hat for it. At least it'll be green.
Yes.
Keep on the Santa hat for him. Give him some Christmas cheer.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
All right. So next up is Walter Roban, Deputy Premier and Minister of Home Affairs, or should be next up. There he is. Minister, welcome.
Hello, yes. Good
Yes.
afternoon.
I'm going to have to, I just introduced yourself.
I'm sorry, good evening.
Good evening. And the Deputy Premier has the most frequent flyer miles with Burn News and Views, because I think you've been on the more than anybody else.
Oh,
And Patrina
happy to
urged
be here
me,
with you guys.
yeah, Patrina urged me to keep my Santa hat on instead of switching to my Grinch hat with you.
Okay.
Well,
Well, it's all
I saw
about the positive holiday spirit.
holiday spirit, right? Well, I was saying like the Grinch hat would still be green, so that's PLP colors.
I see. Yeah,
Although
green's
not
good.
the PLP spirit.
Yes, the seasonal spirit.
Yes. I want to start our discussion off about sea-based and its vision of bringing to Bermuda a wave power park. What does that mean?
Well, once again, thank you for having me on. Yes, the recent announcement that I made with the government's memorandum of understanding with Seabased and their proposal to bring introduce a wave power park to Bermuda, all within the scope of our interest with developing a regulatory sandbox, which will invite innovation in energy technologies to Bermuda, invite the investment, invite the opportunity for those who are in the energy space who have interesting, innovative technology that might even be applicable in Bermuda to bring it here and introduce Bermuda as a test bed for innovation and technology, particularly in the energy space. So it's about bringing innovation. It's about bringing different technological options, which is what is reside in the energy space, to Bermuda. I think if you, Mr. Burgess, go and look at all of the studies that are being done, is that as we, as a planet, confront the issue of climate change, only about 60% of the effort to reach net zero by 2050 can be solved by the current conventional technology. So that means over the next 30 years, we're going to have to be developing new technology, testing new technology, and introducing it into the energy space that can help the globe get to net zero. So This is a part of Bermuda playing its part to help bring new technology that uses resources that are inexhaustible, such as the waves in the ocean, to as potential energy opportunity.
Right.
So
Now-
we're doing our part. We're bringing innovation to Bermuda, and this government is about introducing innovation in a variety of areas, and bringing the investment, bringing the opportunity for new technology, bringing the opportunity for Bermudians to be involved with that new technology, and also putting Bermuda on the map as being a pioneer in the effort to attack climate.
Right. Now, I did see several positive news stories across the globe from your announcement. And this isn't a first step because we've already been doing some other things like the solar panels out at the finger. But what percentage of our energy do you expect that this wave power park will generate for Bermuda?
Well, let me just start that this particular wave power initiative will be essentially an experimental innovation that will operate within a regulatory sandbox. So before anybody thinks that automatically when it comes here, it's going to hook up to the grid and provide power, no, that is not what's going to happen. It will come here as a technological initiative that will be tested here to potentially, if it proves itself commercially viable, to be a component within our energy generation. So it will start off operating in the sandbox, which is essentially, from a regulatory standpoint, outside of the conventional arrangement to sell power to the utility. So it will start off, yes, it will be providing power to the utility, but in order to test its viability first. As a first test, I think they believe that they can potentially start with about 10% of our energy needs. And then over time, with success, it could potentially provide considerably a lot more. And that is what is the potential around this, in that if this technology, which is actually already being tested in a number of parts of the world already, in Ghana, in Sweden, and I believe possibly somewhere else in Europe, I think they are also testing this technology. It potentially can provide a considerable amount of our energy needs. So starting off at about 10% and then building up from there.
So that's, I believe in the press release you had, that's about 40 megawatts of power or so, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the start.
That's a start. Now, if we were to compare this to the solar panels at the finger's what? How much? 5 or 6 megawatts?
About 6 to 8 megawatts of power.
Okay. So obviously a lot more significant than what we're getting at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of differences with this in the finger. Obviously, the finger is a solar array, so it's providing intermittent generation, not continuously 24-hour generation. And that generation,
like today, for example.
Hmm?
Like today, for example, with all the rain in the clouds.
Yeah. So it's providing generation that is being used that will be used by the utility to supplement the base load whenever they have to go over to increase their base load capability. So it'll potentially, the finger, shave a little bit off of the cost of power, because that means that Belco or the utility will not have to put on its diesel generators. It can use the power that it's getting from the finger to supplement the base load. So that is the positive. But that will be intermittent power, whereas wave power is potentially a base load capable generation if it can prove itself to be commercially viable. So waves don't stop, waves don't go away. One of the interesting things is that because you're using wave power, you can predict and anticipate the wave capability that you are going to have available for the generator over time. So it provides a level of certainty, potentially over time, a level of certainty in generation. and can be a potential, I believe, if this technology can perfect itself and become commercially viable, could not perhaps even in Bermuda, but around the globe in the region, provide some base load capability, particularly for small communities like ours.
I want to show the viewers where the proposed wave power park is. If we can bring that graphic up.
Yep.
Okay. So why was this area chosen?
Well, after a considerable amount of work, one of the reasons why this took quite some time is that a lot of careful study was done by us in cooperation with the regulator and working with Seabase to identify the right place around Bermuda that will be suitable for this wave farm to be tested. And so that was the best location that would not interfere with necessarily any delicate areas for fisheries or our sea lanes or any other issues such as coral reef or any other issues that might be environmentally impactful or commercially impactful to our fisheries or our shipping lanes. So out of all the different sites that were discussed, this turned out to be the best option for this particular wave park.
Yeah. So there's potential that we could have more areas if this one proves to be successful that we've already looked at offshore somewhere.
Well, there are a number of potential things that we could possibly do within our EEZ, but those studies are being done now to identify which areas would be best for renewable energy. So there could be other sites within the exclusive economic zone far off of our shoreline, which could be good for such technology in the future. But those studies are being done now, working with the Bermuda Ocean Prosperity Program and others to identify where those opportunities may lie.
Right. How far off the shoreline is that?
I can't give you the exact number, but it is a considerable distance. It's well away from anything. I don't even think anybody could see it by sight. That's how far it's off. It is a considerable distance off from us.
Now, Best had a statement recently where they said, we note the environmental impact assessment is to be conducted by the project owner developer Seabase Limited. We see this as an obvious conflict of interest and would expect that for an EIA to be truly objective, it would need to be conducted in close consultation with an independent entity without the vested interest in seeing the project go ahead. Your comment to that?
Best is incorrect in their examination on the basis, one, environmental impact assessments are a part of our regulatory and legislative framework now, particularly in the planning space. One. Two, in all major development, it is the developer that pays for the EIA to be done. I asked a question, Mr. Burgess, if the developer doesn't pay for it, will Best pay for it? Or are they expecting the government taxpayer to pay for it? But that would not be appropriate, clearly. In every case where major development is done, where an EIA is required, it is the developer that pays for it. And not only that, if you go back to some legislation that we recently passed around special development orders, EIAs are embedded in large-scale developments now, going forward. So this marine-based development must have an EIA done as a part of its examination. That EIA will be paid for by the developer, but also once it's done, it will be examined by the regulatory authority and the government, like Department of Environment and Natural Resources, to determine its suitability and that its integrity and that it meets all the requirements and answers all the questions that have to be answered. And if we find that there are unanswered questions, that will be addressed. But this is a normal standard practice with environmental impact assessments, that the developer pays for it.
Right. So things like any of the recent hotel developments, they would have had to pay for.
Yes. Now, yes, and they employ capable, world-recognized companies to do these EIAs. They don't do that themselves in-house. They employ the appropriate technical expertise to do them, even though they pay for them. And certainly, we will make sure that whoever does it for them is a company of that level of respect and that integrity. So we don't have any issue. This is a standard practice. It's a standard best practice with getting EIAs done, where the developer pays for it, and it's done by a appropriate body who will come in and do it and provide the findings, and the government will review them. The regulatory authority will also review them to make sure that all the boxes have been ticked.
Okay. Now, you talked about the goal for global 0%.
Net zero by 2050.
Is 2050. When would you hope that Bermuda gets to 25%? Have we set any goals, any mile posts or markers that we want to hit in heading towards 2050?
Yes, well, we have already in place, Mr. Burgess, a integrated resource plan, which lays out Bermuda's path towards the conversion from what is right now fossil fuel generation that almost totally supplies all of our energy. Obviously, there is the utility Liberty, that is the license. They are the chief licensed bulk generator and transmission and distribution operator for Bermuda. There is one other entity that does supply bulk generation power, that is the incinerator. But of course, almost every bit of power and the incinerator sells the power to Belco. But it does have the capability to power other things as well. But that's another story for another time. But Belco does all of its generation from fossil fuels at the moment. Our goal, and if you go and examine the integrated resource plan, is to have 85+% of Bermuda's electricity generation by 2035 to be renewable. And what I would like to be able to do, certainly within a reasonable amount of time, is to actually talk to the public about how we might get to 100. But right now, our goal is to have plus 85% of our electricity generation by 2035 to be from renewable sources. That will be solar, that will be wind, that will be biogas, that will be other technologies that may come along during that time that could be appropriately used, potentially wave power to that mix as well.
I know that we said like a half hour overall, but I love talking renewable energy with you. You also mentioned moving to an all government electric vehicle fleet. When do you see that happening? I know we're getting the buses this next year, some new buses, but like replacing the regular vehicles and cars that people are driving.
Well, that process has already started with Public Works, who are the entity that looks at manages our fleet of vehicles. If anyone goes around town and goes to certain government facilities, if you go to the parking lot on Reed Street, right across from the Cabinet Building, they already have charging stations there. If you go onto the Cabinet Office grounds, there are charging stations already installed on the Cabinet Office grounds. So I know that Public Works is beginning the process of converting the fleet of government cars generally to electric. So they will be, over time, over the next couple years, purchasing electric options for particular models of vehicles that we have. So you are likely to see a number of cars over the next couple years to be replaced by electric options. And we're laying the infrastructure to take care of that. Already in place, as I said, there are charging stations on the Cabinet Office grounds right now.
Okay. Just as a competition or not competition, you are the premier. Who's going to get the first electric GP vehicle?
Well, guess what? I would hope that the premier gets the first one. I really do, because I think that will send the right message to the public. I actually, in a previous ministerial role, when I had responsibility for energy, I actually had a hybrid vehicle. So I got close to having a totally electric vehicle myself. But certainly it is now the time for us to be bolder and to go further. And so I do hope that the premier has the opportunity to get the first electric vehicle. I'm sure, whatever option that will be provided to him will be a great option. But I do hope that he can have the first electric vehicle that comes on that is suitable for his needs. But I suspect that what they may do first is, because of vehicles are needed by other parts of the government, it may happen first with some other parts, possibly a part of the regular fleet of cars or vehicles that is used by particularly public works and other like departments might come first before the premier or myself. But of us two, I hope he's the first.
Okay. Now, I want to ask two more questions before we wrap up tonight. We can't leave without talking about COP26. It was a big event. What was your biggest takeaway from that?
Well, I thank you for asking me that question, because I have been trying to share my thoughts on that with people as I've returned over the recent weeks. And I would say that my biggest takeaway from it was the number of organizations and people who were there determined to ensure that COP met its goal of keeping 1.5 alive, and the other necessary steps that need to be taken to ensure that that by 2050 we meet net zero, but also that over the next decade or more, we can reach the goal of 1.5 degrees and keep it there, and potentially surpass the goal. There were a number of, and I'm not talking about the governments. I think, the government role in this was pretty clear, and everybody saw that. And some people may have felt that the governments didn't meet the mark. But what I saw international organizations, I saw NGOs, I saw individual activists, I even saw financial institutions at COP that were determined to find ways to tap into the resources needed to make the conversion, to assist small island states and developing countries to also reach the goal of what is needed to, meet the goals of adaptation, of mediation, of resilience, and also the appropriate resources, particularly financial, to meet those goals that COP was needed to make. So I am encouraged because of all, not just the 200 or so governments that were there, but it's the thousands of other organizations and institutions that were there to meet the goal. I believe that this is very different from what it's been in the past, where banks and fund managers and asset managers and people who are out there in like the business of raising capital are actually determined to get into the business of financing the need for climate change. In fact, one of the things that before I left, Don, I saw some information that was interesting about a local company here, an international company that is based here in the name of Zurich International, and they are actually financing the redevelopment of a rainforest in Brazil. I mean, projects like that are monumental. So there's an international company that's based here in the reinsurance space that actually is leading the charge to recreate a rainforest in Brazil and to replant it and to replenish it. So that's the sort of effort that is behind the attack on climate change. You have international business, you have private business, you have NGOs, you have activists, actually in the thousands of thousands around the world, and perhaps even more, who actually are committed to reaching the goal. And that's the part at COP that was most encouraging to me about the experience. We're seeing all of them there, the young people who were there, who were enthusiastic about the environment and doing what's necessary to address climate change. Their energy, their enthusiasm, their positivity. I know there are some other voices that may have been a little bit more skeptical, but I met others who were actually there, who were enthusiastic and determined to be a part of the solution. So those are the things, my takeaways that I would say were most memorable for me, and left me encouraged that we can, as a globe, and certainly as an island Bermuda, play our role to get there.
Right. One thing to finish up on before we give you a chance to have a last word. What can be done to help make solar panels more affordable for the general public? Like, I come from a middle class family, and even I think like purchasing solar panels is expensive. And for somebody who may not be in the same income bracket that I am, is just struggling to put food on the table, to be able to save on their electricity bills with solar power would be a great savings. But what can be done to help everyone be able to afford this and contribute?
That is a very, very good question. And I would like, and I am going to reassure you, Don, that there are solutions on the way to help with that. That is one of the biggest issues we understand with what they call distributive solar, and with home-to-home photovoltaic systems, and the cost that the average homeowner would have to make available to invest and to have a system. It is expensive. And it's not only expensive here, but it's expensive everywhere. So some of the things that like we've done already, we have a solar rebate program to assist people here who want to make the investment. We've made over the past couple of years $500,000 available to that program to help support persons who qualify for that, who want to take advantage of it. All of the components for a solar system are duty free and have been for quite some time. But we know that that's not really enough because there are other cost issues. So if you go back to the throne speech and to the economic recovery plan, Dawn, you'll see that one of the projects there is to set up a green energy fund. And I'll give you the formal title. It's a Green Energy and Environmental Justice Fund. So that is a fund that I am working right now with a team to try and develop. That will be a fund that will attract investment so that we can actually support the effort to make sure that average residents have the opportunity to take advantage of solar technology. So that's a fund that we're developing right now with the help of some very qualified people inside and outside government. And I hope over the next upcoming months into the early part of next year to be able to announce the fund as a tool to help us develop options in Bermuda so that the average resident will be able to take advantage of solar power and definitely have an impact on their bills. But I would also argue, Dawn, as well, is that those big capital investments aren't the only option that's available to people if they want to bring down their energy costs. There are actually some very small changes that people can make often in their own energy usage and even in their homes with conservation and efficiency measures that can help bring down costs that are also in the renewable space. And they don't necessarily take a whole lot of investment, particularly for those who cannot afford the huge capital outlay to pay for a PV solar installation, which, Don, I know is expensive and is costly for most people in Bermuda. But as I have explained, we are determined to help as many residents as possible to take advantage of renewable energy, and we have plans to make sure that can happen.
Now I'm going to look forward to that announcement about the
I look forward to bringing it to the public, because I'm quite enthusiastic to see that not only the wealthy, and I applaud those people who can afford it, who actually make the investment. I applaud their willingness to do so. But there are thousands of other households in Bermuda, average people, who are plagued by having to pay 39 cents per kilowatt hour on their energy bill, and they deserve an opportunity to be able to bring that cost down for them as well.
That's exactly right. Now, it's the end of the evening. There's a lot of different subjects we didn't touch on that I know are dear to your heart, like the electric buses and the new national park at Riddles Bay.
Yes.
So I'll give you a chance to pick one of the two of them to talk about as we close out, or maybe something.
Well, I applaud my colleague. I'm going to be able to talk about both of them. I applaud my colleague, Minister Lawrence Scott, for following through with getting us the electric buses. That's a great piece to our renewable energy future that he's followed through with, and his leadership to bring that through is really amazing. The other thing is, I'm so happy that the park that is being created at Riddles Bay is going to happen. It's 66 acres of woodland reserve, nature reserve, that the public will be able to take advantage of. And I think that's historic. It's going to be the largest park of its size in Bermuda. And I'm just happy that that's going to be an opportunity for so many residents as we look to sort of preserve as much of our open space as we can for like future generations.
All right. Well, friend of the show, Deputy Premier Walter Roban, talking environment. It was so easy just trying to think of questions tonight to ask you, because you're always out there promoting it, and I know that's one of your passions. So I appreciate you spending time with us tonight. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me, and I'll happily come back and talk to you about some of the other issues, and to help educate our public on more issues around the environment, and particularly around as we're trying to address climate change, which is so important to all of us.
Once again, thank you. And I've been your host, Don Burgess, and on behalf of Burn News, as always, have a beautiful evening.
Good night.